morning. You're watching Businessworld Live. I'm Danie Laurel. We are kicking off a new trading month this September. However, it is with yet another bleak outlook. The Asian Development Bank says the Philippine economy may only return to pre-pandemic levels by late 2023. ADB Director Kelly Bird says the country is on a long road to recovery and such a recovery remains fragile. The Philippine Star reports that according to Bird, the key to achieving a return to pre-crisis output is a faster vaccination program, especially with the spread of the more transmissible COVID-19 Delta variant. Bird's latest estimate is far from the government's forecast of pre-pandemic recovery by the end of 2022 or early 2023. Now, the country's outstanding debt swelled to a new record high of 11.6 trillion pesos at the end of July. That's as the government stepped up its borrowing spree to finance its pandemic management programs. The debt stock jumped by nearly 27% from a little over 9 trillion pesos a year ago. That is on the back of double-digit increases in obligations payable to both onshore and overseas sources. Domestic borrowings, which accounts for roughly 70% of that amount, ballooned by close to 30%. On the other hand, external borrowings rose by over 20% as of the end of July. Now, the government expects the debt stock to reach an all-time high of 11.73 trillion pesos this year. September, as mentioned, is not off to the best start, and neither is our PMI index from market, IHS Market. In the month of August, we went to a slump of 46.4. That is the lowest we have seen since May of 2020. That compares to 50.4 in the month of July, which of course above 50 signals an expansion and below that signals a contraction. Our output in terms of manufacturing fell to 42.4 reading in the month of July. This is the fifth consecutive month of a contraction. Meanwhile, new orders also fell versus the prior month. Now, let's take a look at how we are opening our markets this morning. Also in back foot, down by 1.04%. We are below the 6,800 levels we had finally touched. And while we do seem to be on a long road to recovery, the rest of the developed world is doing better. Ireland, for instance, is ending most of their pandemic restrictions. The European Union, meanwhile, reached a goal of fully vaccinating 70% of its adult population. But we do have some silver linings, at least when it comes to markets in the month of August. You can see on my terminal here the 21 straight months that we've actually seen of net foreign selling was finally ended in the month of August. Again, after 21 months of net foreign selling, we finally saw the light of day in the month of August, and that continues to be the case for the sixth consecutive day. Yesterday, we had net purchases of 307 million pesos here, and they're starting to return to the markets after almost 2 years. However, this according to an analyst at AP Securities, it might be too early to call the end of the outflows given that the buying was focused on selected blue chips like Globe Telecom. And finally, just a quick peek on the banking sector, especially after data from the BSP showed that loans of our commercial banks were at the weakest pace in the month of July. Very quick peek on that. PNB leading the charge here up by 2.5%, and the financial space actually bucking the sell-off of the index up by 0.6%. Meanwhile, here are other headlines we're keeping our eyes on. Business groups and trade unions are pushing for more participation in the national government's employment recovery plan. The organization said in a statement that the National Employment Recovery Strategy Task Force should have a dialogue with employers and workers groups. That is in order to bring a more coordinated and cohesive collaboration among the public and private sector in the strategy for economic recovery. Now, recall that President Duterte signed an EO to create the NERS task force back in June to work on the government's plan to restore employment until 2022. The Labor Department estimates that the task force will generate at least 220,000 jobs and assist over 1.4 million Filipinos struggling with unemployment and income losses. Now, both the Health Department and the World Health Organization say it is not yet time for the proposed bakuna bubbles. Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Verger said the agency is not closing its doors on such a proposal, but added that it can't be implemented yet due to limited vaccine supply. Now, Dr. Anna Ong Lim also told the chiefs last night that it's not yet feasible to have bakuna bubbles, saying there is no ample vaccine coverage for the proposed setup at the moment. She explained that because of the higher transmissibility of the Delta variant, immunity targets are adjusted to 85%. Meanwhile, WHO country representative Dr. Rabindra Abeya Singhe stressed that COVID-19 shots do not guarantee that vaccinated people will not contract the virus. He said the concept of bubbles for vaccinated people will not hold since inoculated people can still get infected, which means they can also infect other people, including unvaccinated individuals. Now, continuing on with this discussion on bakuna bubbles, we have with us Presidential Advisor for Entrepreneurship Joey Concepcion to weigh in. Good morning, sir, and welcome to the broadcast.
Good morning.
Sir, the DOH and the WHO, the DOH specifically said they are not necessarily closing their doors on this concept that you have been pushing for some time now, but they're saying now is not the right time. Meanwhile, you are saying now is the time to be doing such a thing. What makes you think this is the right time, given that we are very far from the herd immunity targets?
First of all, I don't think there will be ever a right time. We have to start thinking of how to approach this. This is a proposal that was brought forward to IATF. I've been in touch with many of the secretaries. If we look at WHO, I don't think they understand what we're trying to say. No, how do you achieve a higher vaccination rate for the country? We all know that herd immunity targets may move up to the 80, 85. John Wong, in our latest town hall, said herd immunity might not be possible. We may have to go for 90, 100%. Now, that starts from a very micro level. Father Nick of Octa talks about micro herd immunity, and that's basically the bakuna bubble. No? What are the components to this? The homes that we live in, our employees, ourselves, these are the homes, the families. No, that's where micro herd immunity should start. Each one has to create their own bubble. My own bubble is my family, my children, my wife, and the kasambahays, and then our extended family. So that bubble, the target is you try to achieve 100% of the members of that family fully vaccinated. Of course, we have a 14-year-old daughter, which we cannot vaccinate, so she is not vaccinated, but it is close to 100%. In the workspaces, that is where the private sector came and bought the vaccines to protect the employees in all sectors, whether it's in restaurant business, whether it's in production, manufacturing, BPO, semiconductor, etc. Everybody has to target 100%. That is your workspace bubble. So those two bubbles are very important. If you fail in attaining a higher percentage in these respective bubbles, you will never attain a higher percentage in the entire Philippine bubble. When we talk about bubble, we all agree that the higher percentage of vaccinated individuals may not protect people from getting COVID, especially under Delta right now, which is highly transmissible, and there's a lot of breakthroughs in the different brands. But very clearly, from PGH shows the number of people you can see here at this level, the number of people getting to the hospitals are the unvaccinated, not the vaccinated. There are.
Sir, just can you highlight or nuance how this would work exactly? What's your specific proposal right now instead of what the government is currently doing, which is broad-based lockdowns and now targeted lockdowns after September 7? And do you have a model on which to model this scenario here in the Philippines? The only models we've been seeing are, of course, in developed countries wherein they already have this target immunity vaccination rate.
Yes. We've been in discussion with Chairman Abalos and the LGUs now on NCR. The target is not the entire Philippines. The supply situation for NCR is there. It's coming. We have millions of doses in a couple of weeks from AstraZeneca, from Moderna, from Pfizer that are coming, and that's been reported by Secretary Galvez. So that a big portion of that is going to the NCR area. In fact, the private sector arrivals, 80% of that, of the 1.1 million, are going to the LGUs, and of that 80%, half of that is going to NCR. So NCR has the supply. Now,
Okay.
uh, we hope that more people will want to be vaccinated. We will have the supply, but the willingness has to be there. So let's see what happens. We're not saying let's do it tomorrow. Let's
Okay.
plan now. Let's be open to the idea.
Sir, is this proposal to get more people vaccinated, or is this an economic proposal to get the businesses back in business? Because you still have some pushback saying that if they, you discriminate, so to speak, on the not the people that can enter, the foot traffic already in the malls is so low that would this not have even a worse impact?
Well, we're not disallowing unvaccinated to enter the malls. What we're proposing is not to allow the unvaccinated to enter high-risk business establishments like spas, gyms, restaurants, etc. And they fully agree with us here. So the idea is to just get the vaccinated entering these high-risk establishments. In the malls, there are other areas, supermarkets they can go into unless IPF changes the rules. I mean, you've got hardware stores, etc., mercury drugs. We're not restricting people from entering that. We're suggesting vaccinated people only in these areas, because when you do casual dining, you're going to remove your mask and stay there for 2 hours. But in quick service restaurants like McDonald's, you're going to stay there for just a couple of minutes just to get the food, eat, and then move. So it's not a place. So there are different scenarios. No? So the high risk business establishments is what we're focusing. And why? Because a lot of entrepreneurs are in the restaurant sector, in the parlor sector, in the spa sector. These are micro and small businesses that are really getting hit. People are not able to borrow money because they're already in full debt. They have been restructured. The banking community has to see some life in the economy. We cannot keep the economy shut down, because then we will affect the businesses and they will not be operating. So you will affect people through hunger as well. No? So we have to say both. And clearly, the vaccines will prevent you from getting to the hospital, getting to the ICU, or even dying. It's very clear from the facts given by all these hospitals. And that's why we're saying give mobility to the vaccinated, let them spur the economy. Don't expose the unvaccinated. So it's not discrimination. It is a health issue. And for the unvaccinated, it's clearly seen. Go to the hospitals and look who's there. They're unvaccinated.
Sir, what about the workplaces? Are you encouraging the private offices to do this same sort of vaccinated and non-vaccinated bubbles? Only those vaccinated can go to the workplaces.
Right now, in the private sector, we're close to 90%. We will accept our employees who are unvaccinated. There is no discrimination there. And we will just provide a safe space for them. Now, what we're trying to bridge now is between the home and the workspace. The transport group is willing to work on this on their own. They have their own ideas. Who are we protecting here? We're protecting the unvaccinated. And it's clearly seen that these people are the most vulnerable. So whether we create a bus for unvaccinated and create a bus for the vaccinated, why not? If they can do it, if the transport group can do it, if they can do it, then that will continue to be what it is. But the transport group, they have a lot of buses in the parking lot. They're willing to use these buses to help the health sector and make sure that the businesses, when we open safely. We cannot open carelessly. You have to make sure that when we open, it's a continuous opening, not an open, close, open, close. That doesn't work. That will even destroy the businesses even more. No? So when we open, we have to have a model that works, and that's why we're suggesting let's try it in NCR. Let's target the 5 LGUs with the highest vaccination level, no, and that can be Taguig, Mandaluyong, etc. With Chairman Abalos, they're open to it. They're willing to modify. But if we don't try anything, how are we going to learn to live with COVID-19, especially Delta? We got to learn. If we won't learn, then we're finished. That's my point.
Sir, finally, just on that, still on the side of the economic angle, how much of a boost to the economy are you arguing for here if this does get implemented right now? Are you able to have provisional or even target numbers in terms of how much we would be recovering if this does come into play?
Well, I think it's a proof of concept. Will it work or not? Other countries are doing. Let's try it here in NCR where there is supply. I cannot say how effective it will be, but it all depends on if we don't try to see whether it works, then we will never know. So if it does work, then we can move to the other areas where there is enough supply. We're only saying let us start with NCR and let's start with the edge use with the high vaccination rates so we can understand and we can refine the model. This is a model that we thought in the private sector rather than just have lockdowns or open the economy and then have lockdowns again. What is the solution? If there is any better solution, then present it and let's look at it. And I mean, we're open to any, but we have to have economic activity or else we are not going to survive this crisis.
Okay, sir, on the back of that, how is the vaccination rollout in the private sector going? Is it, notably faster? Do we have better supply? Particularly in terms of now, people are choosier even with the type of vaccines given the new studies on Delta.
Well, first of all, clearly from the hospital data, all brands work. Maybe I was a little skeptical before with brands not working, but all of them, because you can see that the vaccinated are not getting to the hospitals. Even with Sinovac, which has supplied the most, and AstraZeneca, if that were not effective, then you will see the hospitals full of vaccinated people. But those that are in the hospitals are only the unvaccinated. So all brands, to me, protect. Now, are there better brands? Yes, there are better brands, like any. But then again, we can't be choosy. We take the vaccines that are available for our country. Everybody is sampling, like AstraZeneca. We are some delays, and the quantity that is being delivered, we will wish it is more. But right now, first batch of the private sector is done, fully inoculated the first batch. And remember, AstraZeneca, there is a 8-week gap between the first and second dose. So the doses that are kept on the storage right now are for implementation in the second dose, which is going to happen soon, in 3 weeks from now. Second batch of private sector is still arriving with the LGUs. So that's about 15 million still doses that will be arriving between now till the first quarter of next year. Now, we're telling AstraZeneca, please try to deliver it early. And they're doing their very best. But remember, we're not the only country in the world begging for vaccines. No? And that's the challenge right now.
Okay, and finally, sir, before we let you go, the DFA has confirmed committing to donate vaccines to Myanmar. Do you have any idea about this? How much of that? And also whether we are even, in a situation where we can donate vaccines when we ourselves, as you just mentioned, are struggling procuring them.
Well, I know only of one company who has a branch in Myanmar who is just donating to a few employees, no, because they need to protect their Filipino employees there, no. So that's the only one I know, and was allowed by DFA. So it's helping the Filipino employees who belong to their company also. It's a branch out in Myanmar, but I don't know of any that we're donating any vaccines in large quantities because, of course, we need these vaccines for our own Filipino people. No?
Okay, thank you so much for all of those clarifications, Sir Joey Concepcion, Presidential Advisor for Entrepreneurship.
Thank you.
And that's a first look into the business day. Today is Wednesday, September 1st, 2021. Catch Business World Live for the market close. It's at 3:15 p.m. today. I'm Danie Laurel. Mask on, wash hands, stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.